Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth.
In the United States, Donald Trump's deportation drive is in full swing. We've told you how he is dispatching military jets, repatriating undocumented immigrants to their home countries. India received one of these military jets this week, carrying 104 Indian citizens. Their condition has become a political flashpoint because the Indians were returned in chains. New Delhi has raised this with the US, but there's already another issue that is brewing, that of legal Indian immigrants facing additional scrutiny, especially students who are in the US on valid visas. Reports say these students are also getting swept up in Trump's deportation drive. They're facing additional checks from US authorities, and any misstep could lead to their ouster as well.
Reports have started coming in about how Donald Trump's deportation drive is putting pressure on Indian students. The students all have similar complaints. Uniformed officers have started stopping them more often, demanding their documents like their student IDs, and the checks seem targeted. They aren't taking place near college campuses. They are taking place at grocery stores, gas stations, and restaurants, the places students go to work part-time jobs. Therein lies the dilemma. Most students are in the US on an F1 visa. They are only allowed to work for 20 hours a week. That too, just on-campus jobs. But living expenses are high in the US, so students often take other part-time work to pay the bills. Strictly speaking, this is illegal. It could be used as an excuse to deport the students. Is Trump's deportation drive really looking to target hardened criminals, the worst of the worst? Is that why his ICE agents are now shaking down Indians at grocery stores? Are Indian students who are trying to make ends meet the worst criminals left in the US? Or is Trump's deportation drive taking a different turn, an overtly racist one? What other explanation is there for interrogating teenagers working part-time at a restaurant? Because this is not targeting illegal migrants, but harassing the legal ones who are simply chasing the American dream.
So, we're seeing Indian migrants who are being deported, even if they happen to be students, even if they're in the country illegally, there's still questions about them regardless. Well, people like Marcia Clark back in the day were saying during the O.J. Simpson trial that she preferred to have Asians on the jury because, as she put it, Asians are law and order types. But she's not alone in that sentiment. We also hear this from people like Dinesh D'Souza and others, like Amy Chua. Okay, then the result will be support for these deportations because the law is the law, right? Well, I guess it depends on who you're talking about. They're burning effigies of Trump in India, but the Orange Man doesn't care. They're in New Delhi, he's in D.C., and he can't hear hate from the White House. But I'd like to know, where's Vivek Ramaswamy at to endorse this action? Where's Kash Patel at? Where's Mindy Kaling's brother at? Where's Nikki Haley or Bobby Jindal? Where are any of the white rights Indian American mouthpieces who couldn't wait to talk about how much they hate all things woke and hate affirmative action and how DEI is evil, etc., etc.? They've always been quiet when it comes to immigration. These guys have never had a full head of steam about it. And now here it is, slapping them in the face, and they're completely quiet. In fact, more than that, they're nowhere to be seen. Aren't they going to endorse this at all? These are the same people who always repeat the mantra that they're immigrants too, that they came to the U.S. with nothing but pocket lint and a dream, and they were able to make fabulous million-dollar lives for themselves. They were reinforcing the whole model minority shtick, but now that Asians and Indians in particular are being targeted for deportation, these same people are nowhere to be seen. So all of these high-profile conservative Indians have turned out to be high-profile hypocrites, especially Vivek Ramaswamy, the pump-and-dump king. By the way, I was reading some of the comments that go along with some of these videos. One person said the reason that these Indian students came to the U.S. was for an education. The American dream was never part of the deal. Keep in mind, you had a large number of Indian students who were involved with Ed Blum's nuisance suits, claiming that they were being discriminated against not because there were no Indians at these schools, but as far as they were concerned, well, there needed to be even more. What they thought was that this was going to be helping them out, and now what's happening is the white right is showing those same Indian students the door. This is an important point to make because you have a number of sock puppet accounts and other bad actors who are trying to tell us that we need to get involved and say something about all of these mass deportations. Well, this is the end game that these white supremacists have had in mind for the very beginning for their temporary collaborators. When you see Gen Zers like that Marco Alez guy from Doge, who specifically singled out Indians for who he said they're all going back, what does that tell you? This guy is not a boomer. He's not a Gen Xer. He's not even a millennial. He's a Gen Zer. So you have these young white guys in Silicon Valley who see their Asian coworkers and hate them. And why are they claiming that they want to help more Asians get into colleges and universities? Why are they claiming that? They do it for the same reason that anti-Semites in Europe and the US pretend to want to support Israel against the Palestinians. If you want to defeat two separate groups, you don't take them on both at once. You first defeat one, then the other. And if two of the groups have certain connections amongst themselves, then what you do is you find a way to insinuate yourself amongst them. You drive a wedge between them by pretending to be a friend to one of those groups. And then you tell this would-be friend, hey, why don't we both gang up on that guy over there? We can get rid of a common enemy. And then, once you've eliminated one of your targets, you then go and eliminate the other, who, by the way, will be weakened because of the fact you make sure that your friend is the one you push out front while you're eliminating the first guy. It's the same old game of divide and conquer that they've done since the days of colonialism. And keep in mind, even with all of this targeting of Asians going on, you still have many who are trying to push the white rights agenda anyway. There was a story in the news recently about a student who claimed that he was discriminated against by the University of California, basically every university in America. He claimed, I'm a very bright guy, I got good test scores, and I didn't get into the school that I wanted to, and it must be because I'm Asian because, well, I don't know why, but I'm going to say this because I'm Asian anyway. Don't have any proof, don't need any proof, I'm just going to say it. Obviously, he's coming from the Ed Blum school of deceit. But the point is, discrimination means that they don't allow anyone who is from a particular group to be admitted. When black people talk about discrimination, that's what we mean. That is discrimination. So what we're seeing is the white right, with help from people who are not white, are trying to redefine discrimination as, well, if you don't hire exclusively somebody of a particular demo, then that's discrimination. And yes, if an organization does have two individuals who happen to have the exact same stats when it comes to their test scores or what have you, that organization does have the right to decide, all things being equal, what is it that we want to do? What is it we want our organization to look like? Where are we trying to go with this? Yes, they have the right to say, all things being equal, this is who we prefer because of X, Y, Z. That whole lie about, well, test scores are the only thing that should matter, that's a lie and the people saying it know it. There is no organization that hires, admits, or promotes anyone based solely on test scores. No business does that. No school does that. The military doesn't do that. No organization does that. Hell, the white right like Ed Blum and their group, somebody ought to take a real close look at them and ask, gee, are these white people who are pushing these suits, these organizations that they have, are these the best they could find and hire for this? I'd like to see what criteria they used. Are they getting the best and brightest, or did they discriminate? See, nobody ever looks at them. And that's the shield that they hide behind. Everybody who uses any form of standardized testing or analyses, they do it as part of an overall battery of criteria. Nobody has a one-and-done measure for who they select. So the white right is lying when they claim that test scores alone should be the only criteria. If that was the case, if they were serious about that, then they would also be attacking legacy admissions, but they don't, because those legacy admissions are almost all white, and so they're silent about it. And I also have to say, there's a heck of a lot of foreign-born black people who happen to make it into these universities and such. So as far as they're concerned, this is a good way to get rid of them. A lot of them get in because they happen to be on student visas, they happen to be immigrants, and a lot of other factors. That's what also the white right would like to attack as well, and they're using non-white people in order to do it. But even so, you got the white right targeting Asians, you've got them back on their kick of demonizing China and saying we got to do something about China, and simultaneously you have people who happen to be of East Asian descent who are helping them to do it. Never mind the fact that Marco Alez is going to be one of the people who these folks wind up working for. Asians complain about being discriminated against in Silicon Valley all the time, with many of their white employers taking the line that, well, Asians simply aren't that imaginative or creative. We need people who are more imaginative, don't you know? And when the time comes, when white power thinks that it's gone as far as it can go with its attacks on black people in universities and employment, they will then turn on their former Asian allies, and when the Asians try to go to court, they'll suddenly find that these Federalist Society operatives who were willing to sign off on their nuisance suits, suddenly they're going to be telling these Asians, well, universities and corporations have to use more than just raw test scores alone to determine who they admit, hire, or promote. As Neely Fuller said, white supremacy believes in taking both sides of the conversation. So what we see going on right now is we got the enemy who's on the march, and they're going after all of these people who previously thought to themselves that they were going to be white supremacist adjacent. From the Arabs to the racist Latino members of the LA City Council to the Kash Patels and others, we see it over and over again. Everyone thinks that what they'll do is they're going to ally with white supremacy and everybody's going to gang up on black people and that everyone's going to oppress black people and they're going to get a leg up at our expense. But of course, it doesn't end that way because white supremacy isn't about building multiracial anything. From day one, white supremacy has always used the tactic of turning those that it targets into collaborators in their own destruction. We can and should reinforce that we're not getting involved in anyone else's fight, and indeed we're not. We're on break permanently. But keep in mind that the very people who are being targeted by these mass deportations are still fully helping the white supremacists to attack us at the same time. And that regardless of what you may think of Donald Trump, that doesn't change the fact that the same Republicans who decided that they were going to lead a legislative and judicial onslaught against black people, they're the ones who are also allied with Trump right now. The similarities far outweigh the differences. Just a reminder, we have no friends here. Yes, the white supremacists are going in on a number of these individuals who thought that they were in good with them, but we will always be the main enemy that white supremacy is trying to target. And as we've seen, even though you had the Chinese Exclusion Acts, even though you had the mass imprisonment of Japanese Americans, even though you had all of the bigotry that's been aimed at Asians by the white right all of these decades, look what we're seeing today. We're seeing silence from some quarters on the one hand and outright collaboration nonetheless from other quarters. Even at this late date, even with all that's going on, you still got folks from certain demographics who are thinking to themselves they're going to lay low and just be quiet and hopefully ride this one out. I guess what they're thinking is, hey, we've seen this before. This too shall pass. Perhaps. But there's no guarantee of it. And that's the reason why black folks have taken off the cape and we're not sticking up or speaking up for anyone but ourselves. That's the reason why we've taken this stance. And why not? Black people have warned these demographics being targeted for the last 100 years that they were being targeted. And yet you had people who were hiding behind empty slogans like model minority and others who were telling themselves, oh, the American dream is accessible to all, when the truth of the matter was they were handpicked to be a political counterlever to black demands. We've known from the very beginning precisely how this story was going to end, but there's simply nothing you can do when someone is determined that theirs will be a tragic ending. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Pharrell Taylor, Michelle McKee, Dean Ballantyne, Mark Singleton, and Brenda McPherson. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.